to do this last session, which I think is a particularly important session this year with manufacturers. Because of many reasons, because of the reasons relating to China, because the reasons relating to Atmanirbhar, there's a reason relating to LMM, BCD, etc., right? And because the government recognizes that from a strategic point of view, we want to be able to have enough capacity here. I think that there is there's really no dispute on that. How we get there, what do we do meanwhile, is something we've discussed over the last day and a half. But today we're really going to focus on how we build this capacity, where we are at, etc., etc. So we have a very, very eminent panel, and let me briefly introduce each one of you. And this is in alphabetic order, I should say. Avinash Hiranandani is Global CEO and Managing Director of Renewsys India. He has nearly 3 decades of experience, has worked in different industries, packaging, engineering, and of course, energy. And he's worked earlier with Larsen Toubro, also Wärtsilä, and has studied in many places, including Columbia Business School, and has held leadership positions in India and in Africa. Welcome, Mr. Hiranandani.
Thank you.
And glad to make your acquaintance as well. Also with us is Mr. Suman Nag, who's Chief Revenue Officer, Vikram Solar. He has more than 25 years of experience. Again, when we say 25 years of experience, we can almost never say 25 years of experience in renewable energy. We always, because there haven't been 25 years of renewable energy. For most people, there are some people who have had that much experience. And so in addition to renewable energy, he has experience in automotive, in information technology, and Asia Power Markets, etc. He's a mechanical engineer by training. And very happy to see you again. I think we met once or twice before, Mr. Suman. Also with us is Mr. Manish Narula, who is Senior Director of Business Development at Sales, Jinko Solar. He has over 2 decades of experience, has earlier worked with GE, Moser-Bayer, Semcor. So a lot of work relating to renewable energy in general and solar energy in particular, both from a developer and from a manufacturer standpoint. Also with us is Mr. Ajay Mishra, who is General Manager of Marketing, Waaree Energies, responsible for identifying and securing relationships with new and existing customers, as you would expect from some deals, General Manager in Marketing. And he has also worked with not just India market, but overseas markets as well. Welcome, Mr. Mishra. Very nice to have you with us. And then after Mr. Mishra, we have Mr. Gautam Samanta. Is he here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Yes, sorry. Yeah. It's only when I click on something that I see the name. He's head of PV technology at Juniper Green Energy, has about 3.5 decades of experience, and he is the one person who has more than 2.5 or 3 decades of experience in renewable energy, specifically in PV industry. And had a major role in installing PV power plant modules for 1500 megawatt at Acme, Orange Renewable Power, Greenco Group, and Juniper Green Energy. Has audited 35 global PV cell and module manufacturing facilities, and is associated with many PV research institutes across the world. Has a master's degree in solid state physics and an MTech in microelectronics from IIT Kharagpur. So we have a very, very eminent panel representing different kinds of companies, but also I noticed different kinds of backgrounds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that each one of you has a first shot at a question. So I'll rotate these questions around, so because I know sometimes after two people have said it, then there's not much more for the third, fourth, fifth, sixth person to say. What we had in the agenda, and then I have some different questions as well. Just to remind you, the agenda that we want to cover is what is the perspective of manufacturers on building a domestic supply chain? What are the key risks and hurdles? What are the expectations from government and other stakeholders? And of course, specific steps like safeguard duty and basic customs duty. How is it helping you, much as it is potentially hindering the developers? So let me just go, and I'm going to go mostly by alphabetic order here, and then I'll switch things around a bit. So let me go to Mr. Hiranandani first. Mr. Hiranandani, let's just first see where are we right now? What is the capacity right now for different components in the value chain from where you stand?
So today in India, we have basically module manufacturing, which has grown over the last 4 or 5 years. And we have solar cells. That is, these are the two main things in solar panel business that is around. we at Renewsys, we make EVA, backsheet, solar cells, and solar panels. EVA and backsheet are two critical components of manufacturing a solar panel. Apart from this, there are few players in India who make glass, aluminum, junction boxes, and some copper, interconnecting copper. So we have few players in India who are trying to hold their ground and trying to grow their capacities.
Okay, let me ask you,
Yeah.
because you said modules and cells are the two main things. So what is the capacity in India overall, including everybody, with respect to modules and cells, and then also your own capacity?
So if you see the listed capacity in India, you will see about 14 or 15 gigawatts is the installed capacity or the list that is available with various research agencies or agencies that are collecting this data. But the actual capacity is slightly lesser. I think it will be around in the range of 8 to 10 gigawatts per year for solar panels. Renewsys capacity, listed capacity is about 750 megawatts in solar panels. In the solar cell business, if my estimates are right, the installed capacity will be in the range of 2.5 to 3 gigawatts. And generally, in solar cells, 2.5 to 3 gigawatts. And in solar cells, you tend to achieve 95% of your installed capacity. So that is the kind of solar cell capacity in India. And Renewsys has about 130 megawatts of solar cells.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm now going to Mr. Ajay Mishra from Waaree Energy. Mr. Mishra, my question to you would be that, first of all, let me go across the board. Does everyone more or less agree with those numbers, or does anyone have a different take?
Approximately what was said is nearby the.
Okay, so everyone has got more or less that part. Okay, all right. So then now I'll go one by one and ask you about your own capacity and your plans to get a sense of things, and we'll pretty much follow the alphabetic order from now. So, Mr. Mishra, tell us about what your current capacities are and what your plan is.
Okay, so Waaree currently is the India's largest module manufacturer. We have our current capacity is 2 gigawatts, and we are expanding it to 5 gigawatts in next coming 4 months span of time. So we will be 5 gigawatts in next coming 4 months span of time. That is, I'm talking about the modules. Now, from the cell point of view, we are adding up 4 gigawatt of cell manufacturing also. That also is there into pipeline. And then we are tying up with various component manufacturers for backsheets, for junction boxes and other stuff. So we're planning to have complete ancillary production also at one place. That is going to be there. So this is nutshell like what we have right now.
And when are you hoping to have the cell manufacturing?
Cell manufacturing will take another 8 months to 1 year span of time.
Okay, so and when did you start?
See, the module manufacturing doesn't take much of the time because it is like the machines are there, everything there. Cell takes time, so the work is going on simultaneously.
All right. Okay. Let me go to Mr. Nag. Mr. Nag, same question for Vikram Solar.
Yeah. So I think from Vikram Solar's perspective, on a listed capacity, we are 1.2 gigawatts. But we just announced and we actually just inaugurated our new factory in Chennai. Our old factory is in Faltaj, which is in West Bengal. So now we are in 2 locations. And with this, we'll probably have, by another 2-3 months, we will have about 2 gigawatts and 2.1 gigawatts of module manufacturing capacity. Our cell manufacturing plants are the same manner. We are going to set up a cell manufacturing capacity in Chennai. And what we are planning to do in Vikram Solar is we are going to take it on a graded manner as the local market becomes more and more attuned to using local modules and cells. We are going to actually start increasing our capacity year on year, gigawatt per year for the next 3-4 years. So eventually, by 2023, 2024, we want to be a 4 to 4.5 gigawatt module manufacturing capacity and probably about 2 to 3 gigawatts of cell capacity.
Okay,
that's
Okay. Let me go to Mr. Narula now. Mr. Narula, do you have any manufacturing facility in India or any kind of facility in India right now?
I think am I audible right now?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah,
You are,
thank
sir.
you. Thank you. I think there was some bandwidth issue at my end. Sorry for this. In case there is a video issue, kindly
Correct.
my apologies for that.
No,
So
no, we are
to
able to hear
answer
you.
your question, yeah, we don't have any capacity as at present in India. We are one of the largest Chinese manufacturer.
Of course.
We are contemplating for this program for India, and that's why I think I'm excited to be on this panel about Atmanirbhar. But at present, we don't have any capacity, and maybe another year or so, we have strong plans to look into this aspect.
Okay. Let me ask you slightly unrelated, but ALMM, when did you apply? Are you there? Are you not there yet? Were you in the March list? I didn't see that.
Yeah. No. Unfortunately, none of the global players could find a place in this list because of the travel restrictions by MNRE. We were in touch with MNRE, and they were willing to audit our factories because we were number one in terms of application. We were the first one to subscribe to this program from the global manufacturer side. Unfortunately, due to travel restrictions, MNRE team could not travel, and that's why our name could not appear in the first list. However, I think very soon we hope that MNRE could get this chance to appoint any third party for sending the team to audit our factories. If MNRE personally cannot travel from India, they could always appoint a third party, and we hope that within the next 3 to 6 months, our name could appear in the LMM list.
Okay. And of course, yesterday we had a colleague of yours presenting, so we have a good sense of the capacities, global capacities.
Exactly. Thanks for that.
Okay. Mr. Sumanta, I have to confess, I don't know as much about Juniper Energy, so I'm very curious for you to tell us about Juniper Energy. I mean, I should be more aware than I am, but I confess my ignorance there. Yeah, sir, you are muted, I think.
That is okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Alokji, thank you very much, for this opportunity. Yes, Juniper is one of the clean energy developers company in India, and it is a wing of AT Capital Group of Singapore. Earlier the name was Orange Renewable Power. Probably you might be knowing.
Oh yes, of course. Yes, very, very well. In fact, sorry.
Yes, 1 gigawatt has been sold to Greenco. Right.
Right.
So
right.
We are now creating, several project, but only concentrating, where the comfortable reasons like in the Maharashtra and the Gujarat, and in 2018 onwards, So we have created 300 plus megawatt, and this year and early of the next year, another 500 megawatt in the pipeline, right? So in terms of project pipelines, as you understand, the kind of the bidding prices that is going on. So you have to be, very careful in terms of the quality of the
Let's hope we are able to connect with him. We'll give it a minute. Okay, I think we'll come back to him. So let's just go to the next issue, which is I have to say that it was very good to hear the capacity upgradation plans and expansion plans, because that would tell me that perhaps in a year to 2 years we are, or maybe it might take 3, as it often does, but we'll come close to having capacity here. When Mr. Sumanta comes, we'll basically have him back. So let me start with the key. What are the big risks and hurdles? Actually, let's start with the hurdles first, and then we'll go to risks. And this time I'm going to begin with Mr. Mishra, although Mr. Mishra, we have lost him. Mr. Mishra, are you able to hear us?
Hello? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mishra. So this.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So
there was a connection issue.
No. So Mr. Mishra, we're going to begin this round. We're going to begin with you. Okay. So the question is, what are the big risks and hurdles from your point of view in setting up the capacity?
So, sir, the biggest hurdle that right now that we see is the imbalance in the policy. The policies that are coming right now, what is happening is a scattered policy. The policy for modules is being made by a different ministry altogether. Then policy for the various components that are needed for the manufacturing of like the glass policy is being made by somebody else, and then aluminum policy is being made by somebody else. So what is happening is there is the duty being applicable on all the raw materials, but the finished goods can come like that only in India. There is no restriction on the finished good. Now again, like if my colleagues would agree to it, the safeguard duty is going to go away in the month of July. Basic custom duty that is being announced, that will come in the month of March next year. Now for this 9 months, we really have nothing in our hand right now. The jobs are on stake. We want to expand our capacities, but then how do we expand our capacities wherein whatever capacities right now we are having, we will not be able to utilize them to the fullest, because with the safeguard duty there in place, still there was 85% of the modules were imported. 85% of the modules were imported. Now the safeguard duty goes away, and there is nothing that is there to protect the Indian manufacturers. 95 to 98% modules will be imported. Now, what do we do for this 9 month span of time? That is the second hurdle that we are having.
Yeah. So let me just, I think Mr. Samanta is back with us. Mr. Samanta, if you can start off from where, what you were saying, we can pick up from where you left off. Go ahead, sir. You have to unmute yourself again, sir. Yeah.
Sorry, there was some network issue anyway. So, almost we are there, just to create another 500, megawatt plus, in Gujarat and Maharashtra this year end, and also early of the next years, So what I want to say that we are creating an assets with a high quality, kind of a power project with a reasonably good tariff, in a sense, as you understand, there are, module as well as the inverter cost is almost 55% of the whole project's cost, and there are several options has come, say, for example, as we have already done in a lot of fixed tilt project, I mean, now we are exploring the new opportunities in a sense, like, with the single axis tracker. And obviously earlier, as you know, the module cleaning was through the, weight cleaning methods. Now we have switched over to completely on the robotic cleaning, that helps us in terms of the generations. And the third part I want to mention, like, initially we have a lot of installations with the ground mounted project with the inverter, I mean, this inverter, now we are coming with the instead of central, we are coming to the string inverters, and we could see the generations at the 3 to 4% more, So in terms of the, the technology, where, as you understand, the modules was the monofacial module, now it is coming to the new era of bifacial module. Both the technology has been invented 3 decades, in 1990, in 1988 and 1990s, either monopark or your bifacial modules, But anyway, because of the mass productions which is coming now, so we are exploring those possibility, how to encast, those the high technology and on the bifacial modules, take the albedo from the rear sides, So all the new technology that we are taking into the considerations, right?
Okay. Forgive me if I'm asking this question because I've come late into the game today. You are essentially developing projects, not doing the manufacturing. Do I have that right?
No, we are not manufacturing at all. But my all experience in the manufacturing, core manufacturing, I spent,
I understand. 20 so we'll call upon you, offer both of those hats. As somebody with experience in manufacturing and somebody who's also developing the projects right now. And I will come back to the other guys honest a little bit. Okay. All right. From that standpoint. So I think Mr. Mishra, I had asked him, I'd said the second round I would begin with him, what the key risks and hurdles are. And he said the first key risk and hurdle he mentioned was the fact that, the safeguard duties are going away and the BCD duties won't come for another 9 months. And therefore that gives a window to other people and shuts out the market for them, more or less, if I get it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask other people. I'll not ask somebody to list all the hurdles. I'll say one by one. That way everyone will sort of get a chance to say what they have to say. So let me go to then Mr. Nag. Mr. Nag, from your point of view, what is the big hurdle?
Yes, I think Ajay Mishra actually really took the big piece and said it first. If you are going to have to see some of these investments in manufacturing are big investments and they have long gestation periods. And so if if you're going to leave the market open and not protect those investments, then in the first hurdle, you're going to stumble. So that's anyway what he spoke about. I think if you keep that aside, I'll speak about Vikram Solar. As I said in the beginning, we have two facilities, one of them in Falta, which is an SEZ. The other one is in Chennai. Because of the way the policies are written, especially BCD, there is still a gray area about whether SEZ factories are covered under BCD or not, or do we have to pay, do we pay custom duty when we make a module in the SEZ in our facility in India and sell it within India? And with that, what happens is, even if we increase our capacity in one part of the country, the existing capacity has got a big question mark around it. And so I think those kind of, that's the one which is actually giving a lot of heartburn for us at the moment. We are working through it. I know there are some other manufacturing colleagues of ours in the industry who have similar concerns. And I think that would be one of the things I would point out at this point.
Okay. Let me go to Mr. Hiranandani next. I'm going to the Indian manufacturers first. Mr. Hiranandani, biggest risk or other than the ones mentioned by Mr. Mishra or by Mr. Nag?
So both my industry colleagues have spoken well. Most of the things I agree with them. Basically, SEZ is a big issue. Most of the manufacturing, let's say Vikram Solar, Renewsys, Websol, and I'm forgetting Madara. There are quite a few of the industries which are in SEZ. These industries are ready to invest money into new capacity, but if there is no clarity whether SEZs will be treated as, let's say, manufacturers in China or manufacturers in India, then SEZ capacity will be a problem. And also, it is not overnight that one can decide I want to move out of SEZ and become a DTA company. There is a lot of procedure and paperwork that needs to be done, and it takes minimum 6 months to 9 months, and it is an expensive and laborious exercise. Then, as my colleague from Wari mentioned about safeguard duty, so safeguard duty, like they rightly said, is in place till July, and then the BCD comes in on 1st of April, hopefully, as announced by MNRE. So there is a gap of 9 months. So in these 9 months, the correct thing, in my opinion, would be to increase the period of the safeguard duty till the BCD comes in. If for no other reason, but because this entire safeguard duty period, India lost because of COVID. Half the time we were not running. When we started running, the laborers were the labor was not present where we wanted them. Sometimes the lorries were not there, sometimes supply chain disruption. So we have been battling through all this disruption. And if you have 9 months with no tariff barrier, not only we will have people suffering from the third wave and fourth wave at that point of time, nor will we have any production, and we won't be able to offer jobs to so many people. So extension of safeguard duty is very, very important till the BCD comes in.
Okay, and so let me ask. I'm assuming you shared the concern with the government. What are they saying?
We have written to them. We have not heard from them anything as yet, but we have definitely written to them, and they are aware about this 9-month gap in the middle. And that's why there has also been an application, I think, from some of the people to bring in anti-dumping duty in the interim till the BCD comes. So
which I think was initiated a few days ago.
Yes, that has been initiated a few days ago. So there has to be something in between. And also, the government should not forget the SEZs, because that is where the industry is. Otherwise, we will be asking for new industry as well as shutting down the old industries. We will end up with less capacity.
Okay, Mr. Mishra, is financing? Are there any other constraints besides the policy issues or policy issues? Fiscal issues call you what? Are there? Do you have any funding constraints? Do you have technology constraints?
Even when we look at the funding constraints, now this PLI scheme which has been announced right now by the government of India. Okay, now this PLI scheme was meant to be pro manufacturers. Okay, now what has happened is, right now if you look at the way Mr. Hiranandani said, that we have almost around 10 gigawatts of model manufacturing right now in the country, and around 3.5-4 gigawatt of cell manufacturing in India. Okay, now this policy has come wherein the point system is such that you have to start from the polysilicon itself, and then if you go till modules, then you will be getting the benefit of PLI. Okay, apart from that, the amount that is being allocated in PLI scheme for the manufacturers, okay, is too major. Like just 4,500 crore rupees is enough for one person just to take it away. And if he wants to put up a 4 gigawatt solar panel manufacturing, another 4 gigawatt cell manufacturing, that person can take away the entire city. There will be nothing left for anybody else.
Yeah. So that person is sitting in Gujarat. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
How do we do it? Like there is no assistance as such. So again, so there is nothing which is a long-term policy which will give a visibility for the investors to invest in solar.
Right. Okay.
There's no visibility as such.
But Mr. Nag, despite all that, you guys are going ahead and doing it anyways. So
Yeah, so we've taken.
What's the plus side of things? What is it that excites you and makes you risk your money?
I think a few things that have come which have been good. Of course, certainty around BCD and the timelines and giving the industry about a year to adjust so that some of the projects can be grandfathered, which was one of our customers' major concerns, are good things. The rates are fixed, at least looks like that's what it's going to be. There is no more uncertainty, people not guessing anymore. So that's one. I think the other thing is ALMM. A big part of getting these modules listed and getting ALMM started and ensuring that there is a rhythm of updating ALMM when new modules come in. I think I come from the, part of my renewables career has been in the wind industry, and RLMM, which is the ALMM equivalent in the wind side, has been working very well for the last almost 15, 20 years and can be pointed as one of the things that has actually helped the wind industry localize quite a lot. And so ALMM is definitely something that makes us quite confident that this will go ahead. I think the third thing is a lot more.
Go ahead, please.
Lot more projects coming with local content requirements, DCR requirements built into it, and I think those give a lot of certainty about the forward-looking market for all manufacturers.
Okay, Mr. Samanta, if I can come to you with a different question. Because you have had experience dealing with people across the world and technology. So when you look at, is there potentially a technology or a skill constraint to the manufacturers who are trying to build capacity here?
Okay. First of all,
is it within their grasp to do this, or is it somewhat out of their reach?
I'll talk in a different format. Like there are several weaknesses over here in terms of the India, in a sense, like we do not have any capacity for the BOM. So what you need in the BOM first is a solar cells, which is more than 50% of the whole cost, and these cells are quite advanced cells, as you understand. Nowadays, we have moved from M2 to M6 to M10 and M12. So what is mean by M6 means 166, and then M10 means 182 by 182, and then M12 means 210 by 210. So the industry means globally, if you see China, it has installed capacity of 200 gigawatt plus. Now, if you look at the last year, there was something like 125 gigawatt, but as the substrate size has been changed, so therefore the wattage has been changed. So therefore there is a huge scarcity in the polysilicon overall. But in India, first of all, the silicon materials which I'm talking about, we don't have anything right from the metallurgical grade silicon. Then we have the polysilicons. Then this was ingot. Then wafer. Then cell is 3.5 gigawatt. Another 3 gigawatt is coming. Module 10 gigawatt as on date, and is increasing to another 5 gigawatt. So 15 gigawatt. So we do not have any manufacturing of the equipment as well, as you understand. But coming back to the non-silicon areas, particularly on the EVA, we have got 4 gigawatt, on backsheet 3 gigawatt, glass 3 gigawatt, the ribbon 2 gigawatt, aluminum channel we have plenty, but we have not developed. So what I want to say that in terms of the value chain, we have not developed in India. One is that it's not only the volume, but what I want to say is the quality. That today, because as you understand that the manufacturing of the product, the panel which is coming, and what we give an warranty is a 25 years for monofacial, and is a bifacial means glass is 30 years. So as we understand, I mean, the India is a market like last 4 decades we are manufacturing, but we have not developed, the kind of the value chains in not only in terms of the volume to bring it back the price levels, So what I understand, like even if you make an entry with the PLI scheme or whatever, and the volume that we are operating, it's not going to serve anymore, particularly as a developers, as this is a low tariff bidding, you understand,
Right.
There will be a huge gap, right, what I want to be,
Okay.
So there are several risks as well, I mean, if I say for example, today we are in the P-type and they're moving to N-type, so there is technological risk as well. So we are not cope up to handle all this, the new
So,
coming.
yeah, so I'm going to ask the domestic manufacturers to respond to this. But before I do that, I'm going to ask Mr. Narula if he's still with us.
I'm there, yeah, but there's an issue with my video, so sorry for this. I will be able to speak.
No problems. Yeah. Mr. Narula, if you can give us the counterpoint. First of all is, from your point of view, what's wrong with duties? And second, is going to be that what is Jinko's pitch going to be a year or 2 years from now when you have more of competition here?
Yeah, thanks for this pointed question. I'll give two perspectives. So one is from the point of view of a Chinese manufacturer. Yes, nobody will welcome duties and such kind of heavy penalties in terms of safeguard or anti-dumpings when you are bringing material from one country to another. But on the same pitch, I would also like to say that every country has a right to protect its own industry and right to grow its own stakeholders. And what India is doing is right. It is encouraging investment by this way. And also at the same time, we should not forget that way back maybe 5 years before or 7 years before, China had already done the same way when they had put so much heavy duties, which enabled their industry to grow and the way it is today, and it is competing against the world. So I think India is doing the right thing. India is not any less than China in terms of skill and in terms of willpower, in terms of financial abilities, and we have all the right to seek such kind of support, whether by way of duties, by way of taxations, by way of PLI schemes. So these are all welcome steps, I would say.
And your second perspective?
Second perspective is, when we look at these kind of duties for the sake of our own investments in India, which means that when we see that, okay, we have a clear plan by Government of India for investments, we see that these duties are sometimes not a certain or a stable policy structure. There is a start date of the duty. For example, we look at the BCD, which is starting from 1st of April 2022, but there is no end date given, which means whether it will end after 1 year or 2 years or 5 years, nobody knows. So this will not let any global investor to focus on India as its next investment destination, because once we invest, it will take 1 year or 2 years to stabilize the production and capacities, and suddenly overnight these duties can become zero. And what will happen in such case, the people who are still having capacities in China, our competitors who may not invest in India, whereas we decide to invest in India, we become like any other Indian manufacturer. Suddenly, if duties go away after 2 years or 3 years, what will happen to our investments? So we need this kind of clarity. There should be an end date of any policy along with the start date, which will really prompt the investors.
Yeah,
I want to add some points,
Yeah, just before Mr. Mata, I'll come back to you. So that is, of course, the risk, Mr. Narula, that all the Indian guys also have. They are putting up a plant, and tomorrow, they're also exposed. But let me also ask you for one other thing. What will Jinko say to, let's say you don't have a facility, right? What is Jinko saying to the customers right now? Are you saying better quality? Are you saying better reliability of supply? Are you saying better pricing?
What Mr. Samanta partially answered to this was the technological advancement which China has done so far. Of course, India is not less. I would not say that by any means, but yes, we have to ramp up capacity in India. That's the only factor. Capacity will always, invite best technology to come forward. So China, what advantage it has is the best in terms of efficiencies, the kind of watt peak of module, which is enhancing by almost 10% every year. Not only that, we are using high sustainability products. Like when we use our several bill of materials, we make sure that for Indian projects, it has high sustainability in terms of special testings. Whereas normally people require IEC level of approvals and testings. We plan twice of the IEC or 3 times of IEC, so 3x or 2x type of IEC approvals to ensure that the product that we serve to Indian market are highly sustainable. Not only that, because of the high capacity of the production for our factories, which is approximately 25 gigawatts as of now, we could manage, lower LCOE of the products. And that's how we could enable the investors to get a higher valuation of the assets overall.
I understand. And of course, the fact that lower cost, lower price customer, etc. That's also another argument. Mr. Samanta, you were going to say something I stopped you.
Yes, yeah, I want to add a few points. There's a concern for Manish, So I want to do in a different business propositions in a sense like, any of the big Chinese, either tier 1 or super league players, can join hands here in India with one of the clean energy developers. What does it mean? First of all, the production is maybe 50% or 60% of that, which can be consumed by the, by the joint ventures company, and what is the role of the two things, So in the JV, the 51% of the local developers in India and 49% of the China, So what the developers has to give the facility, number one, the land, the infrastructures, the facility, and we do the clean room and what kind of the infrastructure, what we need, and the utilities as well, The other things like, the BIS and the ALLM, if it is a new product, which has to be here. And it can work in a win-win situations in a sense like, the new manufacturers who is coming here and don't have to do any kind of branding in a sense like if I want to export the excess amount of my product on the modules as well as in the cell, as you know, there's a huge demand in the Europe and the US, So we can earn a huge amount of revenue and we can utilize our, capacity utilizations very nicely and we can work in the win-win situations,
Okay, great. Let me then now ask different people to respond to what Mr. Samanta said and also what Mr. Nirula said. So let me first go to Mr. Nag. Mr. Nag, specific point that they made about the fact that links in the chain aren't there. Not everything in this is there. So how do you address that question?
Let me approach it in a different manner. I was thinking while my fellow panelists were talking, especially Manish, very insightful. I think we get caught up in tariffs in the how piece, right? That means there is a tariff, there is a BCD, SGD. But why are we doing this? We are doing this because local industry needs to scale. And in order to scale, if you make us compete from a very small base with somebody who's already scaled up and large and got all the benefits before in any other country, it's an uneven battle and it's an unfair battle. And there is only one way.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there because I wanted, there were 3 points I was taking from, I wanted 3 counterpoints. So you made one counterpoint. So now let me go to Mr. Mishra and ask him to, the link in the chain issue, the value chain, not everything is here. Mr. Mishra, how do you respond to that?
So I
How would you
completely
deal with that as somebody who's a EPC firm or a full service firm? Yeah.
Sorry, I missed it. What did you say?
Yeah, the question about the fact that they are missing links in the value chain. So how do you address that issue?
So I completely understand. I completely agree to the issue that yes, there are missing links in the entire value chain, which is what I highlighted at the first go itself, where like you have the duties on the raw material, but you don't have it on the finished good being imported in the country. So that is again a missing link, which is why I told you there are different ministries working at different ends. And point which was very well pointed out, like that the policies have been started, but they don't have an end date. Until they don't have an end date.
Yeah, but given the reality of the
situation,
but given the reality of the situation, how are you going to respond to that if your customer brings up the same point?
So now, if we have to, all of us, all the Indian manufacturers, or India probably has to understand one thing, that yes, there would be these hiccups. Yes, there would be these ups and downs that would be happening. Okay, every time a grandfathering cannot be given for all the projects that are being rolled out. So we have to decide one thing, that whether do we want to keep crying about that we'll face the financial burden for 1 year, or do we want to develop the industry for next coming 20 years? That strong call has to be taken by the government of India today, because
Right.
every time we will a new policy will be announced, there would be people who will keep coming and running and saying that how would we survive? How would we do this thing? How would we do that thing? And if the government keeps listening to it and keeps giving the pass through to everybody who comes in, then local manufacturers will never progress. We will never have the level playing field. So I feel that we'll have to decide it today. Okay, 1 year there would be problems. Let's face it together.
Okay.
But after 1 year, things will go on.
Okay. Let me just quickly go to Mr. Hiranandani. Mr. Hiranandani, what about the point that Mr. Samanta made, and to some degree, Mr. Narula also made? And he said, just the fact that there's technology excellence, there is, a great amount of capacity in China. So how do you respond to that? Or is there a response to that kind of argument?
I'll respond to some of the points made by various panelists. So if you see, safeguard duty and anti-dumping duty have an end date. That is how the nature of those duties are. So we'll need to understand how each duty works. And BCD, basic custom duty, does not have to have an end date. That is how the basic custom duty has been designed. So for everything, you cannot have an end date. Secondly, when we talk about quality, and I think Mr. Narula was talking about IEC ×2 and sometimes IEC ×3. Well, I'm sure in India, we are already supplying IEC ×3 tested modules to everybody. So also the government of India has taken care of developers and people who are using solar panels. So firstly, we have IEC testing, IEC ×3 testing. You have BIS approval, and now you have ALMM approval, where the government comes and inspects your factories and checks your processes and the product. So on the quality front, the government is doing a lot. Now coming to technology front, if you don't have scale, then you cannot develop technology so fast. So rightly, as Mr. Narula said, China did whatever they wanted to do to scale up. He's agreeing with what India is doing to scale up. So India needs to scale up. You need to give India time to come to certain size, and then technology will also flow from here. We used to have export benefits to the tune of 4%. I remember my industry colleagues asking for 7% benefits. And now we are left with 2%. That also, I'm not sure where we stand on that. So even in exports, when we are competing with a giant, which is China today, with a huge scale, then India lags behind there too. Then coming to the entire value chain, yes, India doesn't have value chain. Similarly, India doesn't produce too much oil, but we do our own refining over here. So you don't need to produce crude oil to do refining. Likewise, if we can get our polysilicon and ingots, we can make our cells and wafers. And once we have certain size, we can go back and start looking at, somebody will start looking at manufacturing ingots and wafers.
Right.
You can't blame us for not doing everything at the same time. Yes, we're not doing everything at the same time.
I think that's a fair.
So let me just,
please go ahead.
Can just say one thing.
Go ahead, please.
On similar nature, just to give an example, India is one of the largest producers of aluminium in the world, right? But most of the aluminium frames come from outside of India, and that's primarily because there is no scale in the local industry, right? And similarly with glass. We have some of the largest glass manufacturers in the world. We're just starting now to look at glass and others. If there is no scale, then it is not just the module manufacturers, it's the whole ecosystem that suffers. Nothing gets built. And then you won't have a sustainable industry.
All right. So Rome was not built in a day. Okay. All right. So let me go to the next point, which is the one thing that you would like the government to do. One thing, so that there is room for other people to say. And this time I'm actually going to begin, not just with the manufacturer, I'm going to begin with Mr. Narula. Mr. Narula, what is the one thing you would like to government to do? I'm assuming ALMM, would be the one thing, but nonetheless, go ahead, sir. Mr. Narula, what's the one thing you want government to do? You have to unmute yourself, sir. Yeah. So, Mr. Narula, what's the one thing you want government to do?
Yeah. So I think I will take this point positively. The fact is that India government is doing sufficiently well for supporting the investments into the country by way of PLI scheme, by way of several, prohibitive duty structures, which is all welcome. The only one point which is missing here is, or rather 2 points, if I may add, is the development of skilled manpower. The kind of manpower which we have needs a lot of skill development, so that, when such huge factories could be set up, like right now we are at around 8 to 10 gigawatts, and we want to scale it up to say 20 or 30 gigawatts in next 2 to 3 years based upon these PLI schemes. At the same time, we have to develop these skills so that the investment could be in the right hands in terms of the professionals, in terms of the technicians who are running the plants, and so on and so forth. Next is robust supply chain locally. As just now we heard from the panelists that in India, we do not have such kind of, supply chain, like even aluminum is not available to the right capacity, or glass. Yes, that's true. We are only sufficient in terms of small components like junction boxes, cables, or some kind of, machinery which are available for the lamination purpose. Other than that, if you look at the basic components, starting from wafer to ingots, or talk about back sheets, glass, frames, and these are the ones which are definitely required for any new industry to set up. So the ancillaries have to come up the way, automobile industry developed long time back, with several ancillaries in the vicinity of the main plant, for example, Maruti, or for example, any other Hyundai plant. So ancillary development is must. So Indian government needs to look into these two basic aspects, skill development as well as ancillary development, which will support the main manufacturing setup, which will help the investors also to be confident about the destination which India is inviting people to come to. And also the returns will also be generated based upon the logistics costs are less, because ancillaries are close by within 100 to 200 kilometers. And this manpower is also available. You don't have to bring manpower at a heavy cost to come to that location. For example, in Gujarat or in Andhra Pradesh or any other location, there should be locally developed manpower availability.
Okay. Mr. Samantha, I'm going to go to you next. The one thing you would want the government to do.
Yes, first of all, I will say that for export, there should be a benefit at least 1 and 1.5 cents, in a sense, like, when we developed, something like we are targeting like 25 to 30 gigawatt of manufacturing in the next 2 to 3 years, as you know that there are several corporates are working on that, big corporates, and they are coming up in a very, very big way, Apart from that one, I have audited several top Super League players, what they have done, what Manish was telling me, telling us,
Yeah,
in the value chain, in the supply, in the value chain. If you look into and I have audited, 80% of the whole product have been owned by the company. What does it mean? Today, they are giving 25 years or maybe 30 years warranty. And today, if you see that after 10 years, if there is a failure, so what they want to do, that the minimum failure of the risk, that they want to do. It's not only the reliability of the component, the volume of that particular product, so they are coming up on their own scale so that they are very, very competitive, So what has to be done? What I want to say, in India, make it in a 5 different segment, maybe in the north zone, in the west zones, in the central zone, in south zone, and the east zone, The earlier SEZ, it doesn't work. We have to have like, in the power plant, like the solar park, here also in the manufacturing sites, some sort of, valuation has to be done locally, like what he has already told, like in automobile manufacturing. So it's not that critical in the automobile manufacturing, but here there are a lot of resources are available, aluminum, glass, everything. As you know, at 16 years back, I have handled with the Saint-Gobain Glass, it's a French company, they have manufacturing in India, but until unless we give a requirement, like we will take off maybe 3 to 5 gigawatt each, manufacturing companies, and there is a demand of like 25 to 30 gigawatt. Yes, with the scale and the volume, and it will come. It's not only that today, 100% of the component is bringing from China. If I want to say in terms of the cost of ownership, what happens? If you see that cell that we are bringing in the airport, I like to take it in terms of where the cost where you stand, So it is the freight charges, the air freight charges is at least 5 times more than the earlier. The sea freight, we open the LC for glass, EVA, blah, blah, all non-silicon bombs, and there is after opening there is a 3 months, we take the, the loan from the bank, or, there is a financial charges, So apart from the conversions cost, which is coming, say, is a 12 cents for your silicon, 9 cents for your non-silicon product, but there is a delta on the financial charges, not only on the capital investment, which is coming from the interest of the capital investment, the depreciation, plus the BOM related things which is coming. So what I want to say that within 24 hours or maybe within 6 hours, there will be things, if not in that same campus, there will be a company given an opportunity. Like I can tell you, my experience in the Mozambique, what we did actually, we have given, Inox and these things, you create your facility over here, you supply all the gases, and they create it. We have a signed agreement that we will take off, So something like that, you have to be a kind of a, agreed this thing contract with the local, the BOM suppliers, where we can bring the value in this, and not only that, that's secured a good quality product, so that our end product is, excellent, and we can cater not only is the India but international market.
Okay, let me now go to Mr. Hiranandani. Mr. Hiranandani, what's the one thing you would like the government to do?
So the main current thing that I would like the government to do is to extend the period of safeguard duty till the business duty comes in. So that is very, very clear, and that is very, very important, because that's coming up very soon. So that should be done. That's about it.
Mr. Nag?
I think most of my panelists have taken away my thunder. So I will give one big one, the larger overarching one. I would like the government to bridge the gap between having policies and implementing them.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's a very big ask, I should say. It's almost easier to ask for.
Easier to ask
the other ones, I don't think any government really is going to be able to do that, here, anywhere else, or
because unless you have certainty on, unless you have, nobody is saying 100% certainty, but unless you have,
but I get it, absolutely, that there should be, absolutely, I agree with you. Mr. Mishra, one thing you want the government to do.
I just want to sum it up, like the basic thing is there should be a complete ecosystem development. The complete ecosystem of manufacturing that needs to be developed. That is one thing. And secondly, meanwhile this development is happening, the government needs to maintain the balance between the development of solar parks and solar plants and the manufacturing. So they go hand in hand. So whatever is requirement has been fulfilled by the Indian manufacturer, rather than being you are not forced to import it. So if there is a balance between both of them, then they both can progress in a nice pace. That's what I feel.
Okay, but how do you develop the ecosystem, right? Because there's always a because I think there was a suggestion or allusion that the government should somebody should be allocated, but that command and control thing doesn't necessarily work, right? And then it leads to all kinds of crony stuff, etc., etc. So how does it develop an ecosystem?
So when I say develop a complete ecosystem, what Mr. Gautam Samanta said, that we need to have all the ancillaries being developed, end to end, completely. Right. It cannot be just module, it cannot be just cell, it cannot be just ingot, it cannot be just wafer, or it cannot be just.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Well, obviously, you talked about automotive, and that's a very good example. But in automotive, how it sort of came was Maruti came, Suzuki came, and then they brought in a lot of other people. They also had some Indian contractors, manufacturers. They also brought in a bunch of people, and the same things happened with the Korean manufacturers and the American manufacturers, etc. So how do you do this here?
Same what Mr. Manish Narula said, that once there is a certainty of the policies and the investors know that my money is going to come back, they are ready to invest. See, which investor will not like to invest?
So Mr. Barar, may I add one point to what Mr. Mishra mentioned? Yeah, sorry to cut in between, but this was a relevant point. When we take examples of automotive, I brought this point about automotive because Maruti, as an organization, was a joint venture of Indian government with Suzuki. So India as a government, when they are offering PLI scheme, they're offering several other initiatives, should also encourage their own Maharatnas like BHEL or those kind of top organizations, even NTPC, to set up a kind of a big setup as a joint venture or standalone basis to set up the example. And why not? Then the ancillary will come up. It will definitely come up. There is no dearth of people to go for startups or start investments in various businesses in the country, there are people who are having a lot of potential in terms of money, in terms of technology. They would definitely see if government is making this kind of huge steps. They would like to set up ancillaries nearby. If government could allocate certain solar park kind of land parcels near a government-owned manufacturing facility, definitely there will be subscribers who will come and set up their bases for giving a lot of support in terms of suppose we can have even ITI set up nearby those manufacturing units, which could supply manpower. We could have so many plastic units or cable units which could supply cable and junction boxes to those units. So this could be a overall a very robust system which could be developed, and then definitely several other players could emulate and follow the same footsteps which Indian government is trying to do. So I think it should also rest with the government, not only to devise policies, but to also implement what Mr. Nag said, a while ago.
Okay. All right. My next question is going to be slightly different. Just very quick question and answer from each of the manufacturers first, and I'll go this time to Mr. Mishra. Mr. Mishra, in terms of R&D, what are you doing in R&D, and what is your focus area for R&D?
So the focus area right now is to increase the efficiency of the module. That's what we are looking at. Okay. But then again, coming out to R&D, is really an R&D happening in India? That's again a question mark. It's not happening. Reason why it's not happening is we work on the wafer thin margins right now. When the survival itself is a question mark. Okay. When the survival itself is a question mark, it becomes very difficult for you to do any investments in terms of R&D and everything. So what we are doing, we are copying it from China and we're trying to paste it over here and we're trying to run our factories. That's the only thing that's not right now.
So when you have scale, you'll be able to do R&D.
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Nag, R&D, any particular focus area for you?
I think similar to what was said before. I think R&D, our focus area, I would not call it R&D. Our applied next product is basically larger scale, larger size products, and of course increasing efficiency. Those two as we go forward.
Okay, Mr. Hiranandani, your perspective, sir.
So at Renewcell, we have taken a slightly different approach. Because we make our own EVA, we do a lot of R&D on EVA, and in fact, we have also developed polyolefin elastomer, which goes into making glass panels. So we are India's one of the leaders, which have done a lot of R&D in EVA, especially and POE, and we have come out with absolutely latest products, which have been accepted in the Indian market, and sometimes even before other countries have come with those products. Also on the backsheet, we have recently got a patent for one of our backsheets. It's an integrated backsheet. We haven't launched it yet, but we will be launching it soon. As well as in backsheet also, we are working on multitude of areas in R&D. So we are very good or way ahead in R&D compared to our colleagues who are talking more on the silicon front. So on EVA backsheet, yes, we are doing a lot of efforts into R&D. In fact, all our laboratories that we have in Hyderabad and Bangalore in our factories are all NABL approved, and in fact our Hyderabad laboratory is a satellite lab of Intertech USA. So we put in a lot of serious effort in developing something. Well, financial constraint is always there, but wherever we can, we were fortunate to acquire the assets of a very big company, Solar Semiconductor, in those days, which was doing a lot of work for a very big giant in USA. So we had a lot of thermal chambers and a lot of equipment, and we could develop a lot of products and improve our efficiencies ourselves. And we have also tied up with various European consultants who help us improve our efficiencies. So we give it the due importance that we can.
Okay. Mr. Samanta, how does one develop an R&D capability here? Does it make sense? Do we have to wait? Is it not realistic to do it right now? Or does one do what Mr. Hiranandani company does, pick up one very specific area and do a lot of work in that?
Yeah, I think, thank you, Mr. Barrera. I think what Mr. Hiranandani Renewcell is doing is fantastic, I think, in terms of the backseat as well as in the EVA and the POE, right? So what I need to say, because I am a person right from the R&D, I joined as the DSI, I worked on a certain technology called screen printed diffusions. Probably no one is doing over here. Anyway, I don't want to go into the detail of that. But what we are doing over here in India, with the due respect to everyone, all panelists, we are doing the product development, right? But we are not doing anything and working on the cutting edge technologies in a sense, like, we have our own company, and what we will do on a year basis, we have our roadmap in terms of not only improving the cell efficiency, that means the power, and reducing the cost, So what I want to mean, in that particular fashion, that we are not working, but as on date, we are importing 95% of the whole product, and we are trying to develop a certain product in the product development scenario, like either in full cell modules or half cut cell modules, monofacial or bifacial modules, and also with the different structures and the designs. So in terms of the applications wise, there is a huge gap. What I want to mean, because I am from the manufacturing earlier, now in the developer's point of view. So it has to be, on a basis like on the. Is a foolproof system. That system is work. Nobody should depend on the warranty clause when it is coming. Say, for example, as I say, like, as we have moved from the substrate size, M6 to M10 and the M12, so larger substrate areas, what does it, and cell areas, what does it mean? There is always a chance that create a micro cracks. In a sense, like, once you laminate it, it doesn't mean that you are 100% sure. What I want to make, as far as the factory is concerned, they have all 100% checks, either EL 2 times, flash test, everything, visual inspections, fine. When it is reaching at the developer side, at our site, say for example, and there is a manual handling, that's fine. Forget about the manual handling. The other things that the big panel size, when it is coming, particularly the wind tunnel test, So if you look at the test, one is called the static test, and the other is that called dynamic test, which is coming the wind tunnel test, So there is a big gap. Say, for example, if it is a one.
See if we can get him back. Okay. Mr. Samantha, can you hear us? Okay, meanwhile, let's go. Yeah. Let's go to Mr. Narula quickly. Mr. Narula, it's a question that I asked a number of global people yesterday, meaning Jinko and LONGi both. So same question for you, because some people are here today who were not here yesterday. What can we expect in terms of prices? And one, and two is, what are the big technology developments we can expect over the next couple of years?
Okay, so technological development, I think what we have achieved so far, we have touched 600 watt peak panels. Now, majority of the players, even Jinko and others, have reached to that scale. In terms of technology, I think it is going to stay like this for at least a year or more, until unless we control the prices too much. Otherwise, if prices are higher, no point of developing that technology, because it cannot help the developers to ultimately put up the project on ground. So it has to go hand in hand along with the price drop. At present, as we speak, last 6 months have been very, very volatile in terms of the domestic raw material prices, and also in terms of the cost of shipment, for several reasons. So I don't want to go into much details, but if you allow me, I would like to go threadbare also. But the fact is, there are several reasons behind this volatility in terms of pricing of raw materials.
Right.
We used to believe earlier that, okay, dollar versus rupee or dollar versus RMB rate was making the fluctuations happen all along last 5 years or so, as the prices were falling. But now we have seen that one particular component, be it glass or be it backsheet, or for that matter, raw material, polysilicon, has a lot of contribution, and we cannot ignore. At the same time, none of the manufacturer has the bandwidth or the capability to own such kind of a development.
Yeah. So keeping
best,
all,
we can have a
keeping all these things in mind, when things get normalized, normalized as in COVID related, what is your expectation in terms of the price, either in terms of energy or price in terms of unit?
Yeah. So in terms of unit, yes, it is a factor of in terms of various other parameters, like the leverage as well as the several statutory requirements in terms of land and all, and transmission. We heard yesterday several speakers on those points already. So
No,
the
sorry,
point is,
sorry, just separate the developer issue. I'm saying from a global prices point of view, I think I should have clarified my question. I didn't phrase it well enough.
it's okay. It's okay.
What is the price overall from a from technology and equipment point of view? What is the price movement likely to be? Will it continue to go down once things are normalized? Or
so as you look at the technological development, it always entail drop in price. It always. That's why we have seen tariffs reach to 2 rupees or even below.
So my next
60%
question,
contributor is the module, in that. But it is not going to be forever, because there are factors, as I mentioned, behind the production of a module, and we don't have control on all the value chain, whereas we need to develop all of that.
okay, great.
Sorry, I was.
Please, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Should I answer this question now, or should I?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So the earlier my topic was, like as the bigger substrate of the cell is 182, and then it's going to be 210. And what do? You cut it into the half or maybe 1/3, depending on the power requirements. So what does it mean, sir? So when there is a wind speed, so like as you see now, the Gujarat last 2 days back, what kind of things has happened, So larger, cell size or wafer size is always, chance there is a creative kind of micro. So what I want to say, it needs to, kind of a R&D or the practical experience, which is to be done on a system level. It's not that we should work on the R&D, like, as the product which is coming out from the factory, on an application side, right? So I used to do this kind of thing in my EDF when I was a part of the auditor as an EDF. So we used to do a lot of practical this kind of the product. We used to take it from the China. We used to send it to the Paris and our lab. So try to find out. So that's why in 2015 we have qualified for bifacial module. Just understand where in terms of advanced technology. So there is a huge gap. As you know that India is not on the technology. We are working. Not today. I mean, like tomorrow. We are not thinking. We are working on the yesterday. What the people are doing.
Right. Okay. I'm now going to take questions from the audience. I'll appreciate quick answers. I think we've got about 10 minutes or so. Okay. There's a question from Dilip Kumar, and I'm going to give this to Mr. Nag first. What's the plan for module recycling by manufacturers? Are you thinking of that? Would you be offering some kind of a somebody's talking about one option is proposing a percentage upfront for module recycling or something like that. So what's that?
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest issues for the global industry at the moment, not just Vikram Solar. As Vikram Solar, it is something that we continue to take very seriously. We are exploring multiple options on module recycling. I think a few of them are to try to see whether we can have a secondary market for modules and stuff like that. At the moment, there is no one policy or one size that fits all in module recycling. But as the module deployment becomes larger and larger across the world and in our country, I think this is going to be one of the biggest issues.
Okay.
It's a very flagged up issue.
Okay. Next question is from Mr. Gagandeep Singh from National Fertilizers. After how many years solar wind may overtake thermal conventional in terms of installed capacity? Mr. Singh, in terms of new capacity, we already are pretty much there. I think the renewable capacity already exceeds the thermal capacity that is added. In terms of actual capacity, you're probably looking around 3-4 years from now. The reason I'm taking this question is because at Powerline we do a lot of research as well. So obviously, if you go by government's 2030 plan, at that time the renewable one will be higher than whatever, but maybe 26, 27, 28. I'm sorry about that. I just picked that up. Okay, the next question is from Saurav Chaglani. He's asking about R&D, but I've already asked you that question, so that's fine. Okay, another question from Ashwin Meena. I'll send it to Mr. Mishra. It's an important question. Is it the constraint of raw material availability within the country, or is it? Sorry, just went up. Or is it the inadequate processing skill of available raw material? So he's saying, is the raw material itself is not available, or is it us not being able to process it?
So raw material itself, see, we are not able to process it as of now, right now. We're able to process because we don't have the facilities to do that. Silicon is available, but we are not able to make ingot out of it. What do we do?
Okay, all right, okay. Next question, I'll send to Mr. Nag. What gives individual Indian module makers confidence that they will have competitive advantages, price, quality, technology versus their Indian counterparts, that their capacity will be completely, I guess he means global counterparts, when their capacity will be completely, yeah, go ahead.
I think what gives all of us confidence, especially Vikram Solar, I can speak for my own organization, is that we compete in global markets. It's not as if we just compete in India with other players across the world. We compete in global markets. We win in global markets. We may be small in some of the global markets, but we win our fair share, and we win on price, but more than that on technology, performance, all the things that customers are accustomed to looking at from a module supplier. And that gives me confidence that given the right incubation environment, we'll soon have scale, and scale is what we are missing as of now.
Okay. Next question from Gagandeep Singh is, how, if you're not on ALMM, how does it affect you? Mr. Arora, is that affecting you right now?
It's not, but yeah, going forward, it could affect us going by the way the policy have been designed for upcoming tenders, that earlier it said on the date of bidding, a particular vendor has to be in the list for it to qualify and sell in that particular scheme. But now it has been revised that at the date of invoicing the modules, the name should be there in the list. So it definitely gives us, certain threat in terms of whether if our name doesn't appear in the next version, by the time the developer decide to invoice these modules, then we will lose our market share tremendously. But yes, we wish that government is also equally willing to give a lot of competition into the Indian market, especially to developers, and also lending community is also equally keen to have global competition coming to India for effective development of the Indian solar program. So I think very soon MNRE should find some ways and means, even if they cannot personally travel to China for auditing, they should appoint some third parties and complete the audit process so that several Chinese companies could qualify and be in the list in the next version.
Mr. Narula, next question I'm going to ask you as well. What is a lesson we can learn from Moser-Baer experience as we look and trying to, and I'm going to ask other people that question as well.
Moser-Baer, yeah, I think since I was in Moser-Baer along with Mr. Samanta, so yeah, I think we had seen Moser-Baer, grow up like a dream company and then falter. Maybe the reasons could be several, but 2 or 3 reasons which could be relevant today is that Moser-Baer developed its factory based upon erstwhile incentive scheme. And as I understand, till date, incentives could not be granted. So that is a learning which everybody should have in back of mind, that now what will happen with this new PLI scheme, how the takers will get advantage, and whether there's a definitive program, because there is a priority in this new scheme also in terms of scale, in terms of efficiency, in terms of sellability, and there should be a kind of a competitive scheme, a process for selecting the right players. So this is the lesson I think which we already have seen from Moser-Baer experience, and one should always be careful about it. And I think government should also look into it, that if previous schemes could not be completely subscribed to or given the credit to, how this scheme they can ensure to the investors to get the right benefits.
Yeah, in a way, Mr. Nag had made that point earlier to make sure that the policy, the implementation is actually there. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of it, and I'm just giving each one of you a chance, because if there is a particular thing you wanted to stress or say, which I did not ask you about, and we're going to go back to the original order. Mr. Hiranandani, we begin with you, sir. You have to unmute yourself here.
Sorry about that. So I think we have covered the whole topic in detail, and thanks to you, you have been patient in listening to everybody and covered all the points. So I think sometimes policy uncertainty is not the government's doing. They have limited options in front of them, and when they try out an option, they do discuss with the industry. Industry gives them the feedback. And this is one of the ministries, MNRE has been so closely right through the COVID period. I think they held weekly meetings with the manufacturers and the developers. And we have gotten somewhere with that. We have today the DCR policy in place. We have the safeguard duty in place till now. We are quite certain about the basic custom duty coming in. And it is not as though, that one department doesn't know what the other department is doing or one ministry does not know. They all interact with each other. And since I am part of those meetings also sometimes, they are very, very knowledgeable and they know what they are doing, but they don't have all the options in front of them. So this is one thing I wanted to clarify, that it's easy to criticize somebody, but they are putting in a lot of effort to see that manufacturing scales up in India.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure I'm having alphabet recorder. Mr. Mishra, you go next, sir. If there's one thing you want to stress that I didn't ask you about, or you want to reinforce something.
Reinforcing is only one thing, that just 9 months government has to do something for us. That's the only thing I would say.
Okay. All right. Okay. Mr. Nag.
I think you brought out most of the points very clearly, but if you step back a little bit and take the bigger picture, let's not forget the fact that we are doing this for what reason? We are doing this because we want to create jobs, we want to improve the industrial infrastructure, we want to bring in investments, improve R&D, generate revenue from exports. These are all the things that would happen if you have a very vibrant manufacturing setup for solar in India and also go green. So there are so many things that are tied up to the health of this country in terms of environment as well as jobs, job creation, and the well-being of our citizens, that this is actually the most important thing we should focus on.
Okay. Mr. Narula?
I would like to say one thing that, back on the investment point, which I made earlier, that even if a Chinese manufacturer like Jinko would like to invest in India and like to stay competitive against our other Chinese counterparts who did not invest in India, I need certain support from Indian government, not only in terms of PLI, but also certain policy, a long-term policy, or robust policy structure, that I should not lose out to my other competitors, because I would be at least 1 or 2 cents costlier than my Chinese counterpart if I invest in India and have my, sourcing from India for Indian projects. So same as with domestic manufacturers, I do not want to lose onto that 1 or 2 cents and be under pressure unnecessary. And I need that kind of support for long-term policy robustness. And there should not be any abrupt policy takebacks.
And one of those things being end date for BCD.
Exactly.
All right. Mr. Samanta, you have the last word.
Yes, I will first, try to address something like which.
Very, very briefly, I would say 1 minute last word.
Yeah, what I want to say, Mozarbeer was not a manufacturing; it was an institution in terms of the R&D, in terms of the product development, in terms of these things. I mean, you can't unbelievable the kind of the state of an art equipment that it was manufacturing, and the product was going to the Germany and US and all. This is the first part. So as far as the Indian government is concerned, for what they have done is a PLI is a kind of the threshold of the momentum they have given. But we should not depend upon the PLI scheme that in future, So what I want to say that each developers, each manufacturers should have their own roadmap, not only in the technology, but also in the cost roadmap, so that the way of what I told types of reasons in India, so not only the the supply chain develop, but at the same time, the kind of the BIS lab, which is very, very required, and also it should be cost effective, solutions in a sense, like all the testings to be done, say, within 1 month's time, apart from the, there are several chambers, which needs to be 2 months time or so, but the cost wise, it should be maybe 1/3 or so that it will be, everyone can change with the new product and with the ease of time. So that's the points I want to mention. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. It's been a very interesting discussion. I certainly learned a great deal, and I'm assuming that many of the audience did as well. Greatly appreciate all of you being there. We owe you all a lot of gratitude, and I'm going by my screen now, not alphabetic order. Mr. Hiranandani, Mr. Mishra, Mr. Nag, Mr. Narula, and Mr. Samanta. Thank you very, very much, sir. That was really worth it. And I think we are come to the end of the conference. And before we completely say bye-bye to everyone, my young colleague Harshita is going to just make a few announcements. Harshita, if you can just do that quickly as well. So
yeah, thanks, Mr. Barara. Thanks for this nice session. Really appreciate your
much for the
much wisdom to handle every issue here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.